Don't you feel that there are some days that just blend into each other? You couldn't tell them apart even if you tried to. And you just forget about them the minute they are over. And you couldn't remember them the next week, forget the next month. They just become part of the haze of the memory. But then there are some days that are so electric, that are so shocking. You get to meet some people and you get to travel to a place, or you end up making such choices that they just end up changing completely everything, change your life. You remember them for the rest of your life. Sure you do. There are such days, and one of those days is today. Because today, our life completely changed. Today, my dream of becoming the private detective, someone of note, where someone would say, "Oh, there's Vicky, the private detective, someone really important." Well, that day happened today. But how did it happen? Well, let me ask you. If you live in one of the most boring cities where nothing ever happens, and you have one stupid dream of becoming the private detective of note, what happens then? You don't get a case, but then two small-time novice thieves decide to commit a quiet burglary that would remain unnoticed. But what happens is the complete opposite. They just put the city to a complete halt. They create a pandemonium in the police department, and not just the police. They end up throwing the wrench in the plans of the railway police force of Terminal Railway Station. This end up stopping an important minister who was coming right from the capital to our city. Not just that, they end creating a situation where the most glitzy and sort of the most fashionable wedding happening in the city ends up with the risk that it might not happen at all. Well, don't you say that those are an interesting turn of events? When something this big happens, well, can Vicky and Sunny be far behind? No. Maybe we stumble onto these set of events out of pure blind luck. Maybe that can be argued. But what can't be argued is how we ended up dealing with that. So that's why today was one of the most interesting days of my life. But before I tell you about this, you must be scratching your head and saying, I listened to all that this guy had to tell me, but who the hell is this guy? I don't even know about this bloke who just ended up telling me his story, his life story. Well, so let me stop you. Let me stop for a moment and give a brief introduction. My name is Vicky, and as far as I can remember, I wanted to be a private detective. Well, why would you ask why? Why would you want to be a private detective? And I can say, I don't exactly know when my interest or inclination for this thing happened. All I can remember is that when I was a child, I was interested in all things detective and investigation. If there was a movie on TV, spy thriller or legal thriller, murder mystery, any kind of a movie with a suspense, well, I had to watch it. No one could remove me from in front of the TV screen. Same goes with books. I loved to read, but only one kind of book, to be very honest. Our school library was very big, and it had many these adventure and suspense books. And there was probably not even one single detective fiction that I had not read. In fact, that is how I had met Sunny. Sunny studied in the same class as I did, but we were not great friends, you would say. Then one day we found out that a new book had come in our library. It was a a book in the series of the detective fiction that I liked to read. And so it turns out Sunny liked to read that as well. And we both reached the library and we both wanted the book. Both of us wanted to take the book home, check out the book. But who would take it? Well, that is how we started to fight. Punches started to fly, kicks started to fly. And we were rolling around the floor, punching each other, trying to tear each other's clothes off. And our whole class was standing around us, looking at us, fighting as to who would take the book home. Remember those days when kids used to read books? Well, I do. So the teacher came and did the only thing that she could do, grabbed us by a ear and turned us out of the class, and none of us were able to take the book home. But that was the beginning of our friendship, and that is how we decided that we had a very common interest. I remember we had a group of friends when we were kids. After school, we used to play cricket, and we had managed to buy a cricket kit. It was probably a most prized possession. In my house, there was a big garden, and at the end of the garden was a storeroom where we stored that cricket kit. Well, what happens? One day, we came back home from the school, and then it was a cricket time. So we went and opened the door of a storeroom, and what do we find? The cricket kit has completely disappeared. We were shocked. Now, our friend said, well, you two like to read detective books so much. Why don't you two find out? And I thought, well, not a bad idea. We kind of have a good knowledge of how investigations are conducted. Well, Sunny and I were on the job, looking for clues and evidences. We were interviewing suspects. We suspected first our friends. What if one of them has stolen the kit? But turns out they were all innocent. Then our suspicion fell on our family members. We gave them a once-over. What if they have confiscated the kit? Maybe it was because of our bad report cards. So we tried to investigate them, interview them, but then they shooed us away and said, please stop wasting our time. And so we had to give them a clean chit. But then we widened our investigation scope, and it turns out that it was the kids in the next lane who had stolen our kit. So far, the movie that was playing was a typical police procedural and investigation movie. As soon as we found out who had stolen our kit, that became an action film. We somehow managed to recover our kit. But what stuck with us was the fact that we really had managed to carry out a very successful investigation. That was the time we decided that when we grew up, we wanted to be private detectives. I said no to the office work. No, we cannot sit in an office all day long looking at screens and registers and saying, yes, sir, no, sir, of course, sir. No, we didn't want to work in an office. We somehow managed to complete our studies. I can't tell you how we managed to go through the school and then the college. And then when the college was over, we thought the time has come. We sort of collected however little money we had, pooled it together, and rented an office. I remember that day. We were putting up the board, Vicky and Sunny Private Detective Agency. That was probably the proudest day of my life till then. So we started the agency, and then we waited for the cases to arrive, as we knew they would. We had seen those in the movies. Beautiful names coming with a case to be solved about a cheating husband or someone who is causing them trouble. Middle-aged businessmen who have troubles because someone is calling them asking for ransom money. Something of those sort. We just waited, and then we waited, And then we waited some more because the cases just did not arise. They were one or two small time cases. They were basically nothing. And after waiting for a couple of months, when our patience and our time and the money, the most important thing, the money, had completely run out, we decided that the dream was probably over. We shuttered the shop, we pulled down the boards, and Vicky and Sunny private detective agency was no more. And you were saying, oh no, then what happened? How come you are still private detectives? Well, what an interesting turn of events since then. So anyways, we had no job, we had no business. And so we were racking our brains what to do now. We decided, in fact, we were looking back on our childhood when we used to watch all those movies. And we thought about the legal thrillers. I said to Sunny, the lawyers always seem to be rolling around in money. There is no shortage of legal cases in our country. The courts are all backed up, means there is a lot of work. And the lawyers really have a lot of money. Have you seen a lawyer who is not rolling around in his Mercedes or his Audi? I haven't. And I thought, lawyers do kind of do this detective work. They have an innocent client who has been wrongfully accused of some heinous crime, but it is actually the powerful and the rich guy on the other side who has actually done the crime. And then the lawyers swoop in at the last moment, bring out the evidence that the police had completely missed, and thrust that in the face of the judge, and his innocent client is declared innocent, and it is actually the rich criminal, the powerful guy, the one who has connection with the politicians and the business community. He is the one who goes to the jail. So I thought, lawyer work kind of like detective work, except with lots and lots of money. And so Sunny and I decided that we were going to be not private detectives. We were going to be defense lawyers. But the question was how to become a lawyer. We had no idea. And so we decided to go to the college street. Now, I don't know if you have ever visited our city, Terminal. Have you? Probably not. It seems to be completely off the map. I ask anyone outside of Terminal, have you heard of Terminal? And they say no. Well, anyways, let me tell you briefly. We have many colleges, very big, very prestigious colleges, and they're all located around College Street. And on the college streets, there are many shops. Our friend has a shop on the College Street. If there is a book that you need to find, and you can't find it at any bookstore, you need to come to our friend's bookshop. He has every single book that seems to have been printed about civil services, all the competition exams, legal books, finance books, science books, every kind of book. I can't even tell you. So anyways, we thought he's the guy, we should really discuss this. He can tell us which college to go to, how to become a lawyer. So we went to his shop and we started to ask him, hey, in fact, we discussed our plan with him. He was surprised at first and said, you're really not going to be private detectives anymore? What could we say? He said, no, we tried it, but there were no cases. What could we do? So now we have decided that we are going to be lawyers. He gave us a weird kind of look, a kind of a pity. I could see there was pity in his eyes. He said, you know what? Wait here, wait for a moment. And then he went to the back of his shop and brought out around 4 to 5 books that were this thick. Really, really thick. Not one book was less than probably 300 pages. He just slammed those books in front of us and said, why don't you glance through these books? and we started to rifle through the pages. They were all full of sections and case laws and the old constitutions and whatnot and legal theory. He said, you know what? These are just the books from your first semester, not the whole course. Are you sure you are ready to read all of this and learn all of this? Sunny and I discussed, this does not seem like us. I have no idea how I'm going to remember all of this. And so Sunny and I made probably which was the wisest decision we could make and said no to the legal career. We will leave the legal career for those nerds who just love mugging up these case laws and sections. We are men of action. We don't have time to read all these books. A friend said, you know what? I thought so. Well, we came from our friend's bookstore and sat in a nearby garden watching the students go by on their way back from the college. We again did not have any idea what we were going to do. I lay down on the grass and tried to go to sleep while Sunny sat beside me on the bench reading a newspaper. And suddenly he gave an exclamation and said, "Hey Vicky, I have an idea." And I said, "What?" "Why don't we try to be journalists?" And I said, "Journalists?" That idea had not occurred to me. I gave it some thought. I mulled it over in my mind. Journalist, huh? On the con side, not much money, not any money in journalism, unless you are one of those who, fix things. But for most journalists, basically no money. So that is a bad thing. But on the positive side, journalist work is kind of like a detective work, is it not? Journalists need to find stuff out, go to different places, interview people, bring out the truth, educate the people about the truth. You know what? I said to Sunny, that's a good idea. That's a very good idea. I don't care about the money. I just care about the job. Yes, we are going to be journalists. And so the next day, we borrowed some suits, put on the tie, printed our resumes, and went to the offices of the only newspaper in town, Criminal Times. Now, we had seen some movies and had some idea of what a newspaper office is supposed to look like. The idea that we had was a very large hall with lots of cubicles and all the reporters sitting in the cubicles typing their reports on their typewriters in pursuit of truth. When we went to the offices of Criminal Times, our illusion was completely shattered. First of all, it was situated in a very derelict kind of building, but we thought, hey, who cares? We went to the offices. It was on the 3rd floor, opened the door, and then got our first shock. It was not a big office. All we could see was there was a receptionist sitting on one side, scrolling on her phone, and on the other side, by the windows, there were 2 men who were standing there, and they were smoking inside the office. Those 2 men were smoking inside the office. They were sort of heavy-set fellows, a little balding, and the most disturbing thing about them was the expression on their eyes. I don't know how to explain it to you, what their expression was, but it was the kind of expression you see on a man who knows that the life has moved forward and left him behind. The resignation, the defeat, that was clearly etched onto their faces. They didn't even give us one glance as we entered the offices. The office itself was nothing to speak of. On one side, there was a water cooler that was leaking, and on the other side was a very moth-worn sofa with stains reaching back through the turn of the century, probably. Well, we were not demotivated. After all, we had come for the job and we were determined to get a job. So we walked over to the receptionist and asked her, Ma'am, we are here for the job for journalism. She completely ignored us. So I repeated, Ma'am, do you have any opening for journalism? Here is our resume. All she did was raise her hand and pointed to an office. And I saw in peeling paint written on the door was editor. She was pointing towards the editor's office. And so Sunny and I went to the editor's office and just went inside. There was a man sitting over there behind his large desk. His desk was covered with papers and files and old documents. And I thought this was not a time to be polite. This was a time for action. And I said, "Hello, sir. I'm a big fan of your newspaper and we want a job in your newspaper." And handed him our resume. The man gave us a very sad look. Or was it anger? I don't really know. And he said, "You have chosen a very good day to apply for the job." And I said, "Well, thank you, sir." He said, "Shut up. I meant that our newspaper is going out of business. I myself am typing my resume to send to other newspapers." And I said, "What?" And Sunny and I suddenly had another gate closed in front of our eyes. We had completely run out of options. And we were standing right there when something strange happened. A guest of the editor came into his office and handed him a card, an invitation card. His either son or daughter, I don't remember which, was getting married. And he had come to invite the editor. And we were standing over there and listening to what they were talking about. And he said, "You know what, all the arrangements are done, but we don't have a photographer for the wedding." And then nudged Sunny, said, "Hey, I think we should take this job." Sunny said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, we knew how to photograph." So I just went over to the man and said, "Oh, you are in luck, sir. We are very good wedding photographers." He said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yes, sir. Very, very good wedding photographers. We'll do a very professional job." And I don't know why, but the man trusted us and gave us the assignment. We must have done a pretty decent job because after that, we soon started to get more work. And suddenly, we started to earn some money for the first time in my life. I had no idea, but wedding photography is kind of a lucrative job. Difficult job, long hours, a lot of money. And suddenly, Vicky and Sunny private detectives had become Vicky and Sunny wedding photographers. Well, the wedding photography business is kind of strange. Some days are too hectic, and then there are other days where there is absolutely no work at all. And on one such day, Sunny and I were sitting in our office, and I thought about a dream. The dream of becoming a private detective that was just refusing to die. That was what I had wanted to do. All this is fine. Photography is fine. But this is not detective work. That is what I want to do. And I said this to Sunny. And he was probably also thinking the same thing. Because it is, in those quiet moments that we become introspective and thinking about everything that we have not yet done. And so, in that moment, we were both thinking about the same thing. And I said to Sunny, "You know what? Let's be private detectives." And Sunny said, "Well, how? How? We tried. We failed." And I said, "We did not fail. We probably learned a few things." Sunny said, Damn if I know if I learned anything from it. And I said, no, what I learned was that not many people knew about us. If you want to succeed in this business, or any business for that matter, you have to make yourself popular. You have to make yourself popular on social media, on internet. We are going to start a YouTube channel. Sunny said, really? What will we show over there? A photography business? I said, no, not photography business. We are going to show our cases. And Sunny said, what cases? I said, there will be cases. Don't worry about it. There will be cases, but we will, record ourselves solving those cases, build an audience, and that is how we'll get more cases. Sunny was hesitant, but I was adamant. And we just started our channel. It is a weird thing. Sometimes you can think about an idea for weeks and months and years and do nothing about it. And I believe I have found out how to turn that idiotic, that stupid idea into reality. Just start doing the damn thing. Just start doing it. Yes, people will laugh. Worse, people will completely ignore you. Don't put any mind to it. Just start it. Because strange things started to happen. As soon as we started our YouTube channel, we started to get a few cases. Yes, they were just minor idiotic cases. They were just a trickle of cases, not the flood that we were expecting. But as I said to Sunny, something is better than nothing. Which brings us to today. Today started in a very normal fashion. But you know what? As soon as I got up today, I knew that something weird was going to happen. I had a feeling that today was the day my life was going to change. So, today was the day we had to report to Dr. S.N. Mishra's house because his daughter was getting married. And we, as usual, for most of the weddings in Terminal, were the wedding photographers. It was supposed to be a 3-day function. And we reached there first thing in the morning. And while we were sitting there, my mind started to race. Some days you are in a photography mood, but then there are days when you are just in the detective mood. And while I was there as in my job as a photographer, I just was not in the mood. And I said to Sunny, the events will start in the evening, right? Sunny said, right. He had a big plate in front of him on which he had loaded all the pakoras and samosas and everything. Because it was a wedding house, there was a cook right in front of us. The house was beautifully decorated. There were, and the celebrations sort of had become. Dr. Mishra's relatives had arrived there and it was the breakfast time. And obviously, the buffet was open for everyone. And when Sunny finds a nice, comfortable chair to sit and a tasty food to eat, he is just the kind of guy you can't make him move. And so he was very comfortable. But I was not. And I said to him, you know what? The celebrations start in the evening. Why don't we go out in the day, during the day, and work on the cases? And Sunny said, what cases? We don't have a case. And I said, we won't have a case if we keep sitting here. Let's go out into the city, find stuff out. Maybe there's something on which we can make a video. Maybe, it might be a minor thing, but who knows? We'll figure it out. But I don't want to sit here. And there was a very good reason why I didn't want to sit in that house that morning. Have you been to a wedding? Have you ever seen two young men sitting in a wedding house without any work, just enjoying themselves? Because suddenly all the people see two men sitting without any work, and all they can think of is, why shouldn't we give them some work? In just past half an hour, 45 minutes, three different people had come to me telling me, you know what, could you help, could you take the sofa outside? And I took the sofa outside. Then someone came, could you fix that bulb in the lamp? And I was suddenly fixing bulbs in lamp. Suddenly, the bride's aunt, who I had never even met, came to me, can you find out when the flowers will come? And I said, I don't know. Well, can you find out then? Just go to the flower shop. And I had enough. I could not do any wedding chore. So I said to Sunny, let's go out. I'll go mad if I have to just listen to these people. And Sunny was not really in the mood, but then we saw that the bride's uncle coming towards us, who had made us take the sofa outside, and I knew he had some other work for us. So maybe that was finally what convinced Sunny. But we sneaked out of Dr. Mishra's house and decided that we would sort of roam around in the city trying to find stuff out. Well, one thing that we had started to do in order to find cases was to visit the Phulganj police station. Now, Phulganj is one of the biggest markets in Karbinar. So, and right in the middle of the market, there is a police station. So what we used to do was, we just went there and tried to chat with the policemen in case there was some sort of a case on which they could turn us. Or we talk to the people who come there with complaint in case there was something we could find. We had managed to find a few cases this way. And so the first thing that we decided to do was visit the Phulganj police station. So we started a bike. Sunny, as usual, was behind me and I was riding the bike. And in just a couple of minutes, we reached the police station. I parked my bike and I noticed that there was something weird happening today in the police station. There was a lot of crowd in the police station. A lot of people were going in and coming out, and we had never seen a crowd of this kind in the police station. We went inside. Now, I don't know if you have seen those old-timey British-style buildings. Phulganj police station was that kind of building. So while there is the police station, there around it are very large grounds. So it is a very large compound in which the Phulganj police station is situated. It is probably the biggest police station because it has the biggest jurisdiction in the city. So as we entered the gate of the compound, we noticed that on one side there was a very big banyan tree, and around that was a cemented platform. On that cemented platform, the police station, the in charge of the police station, Inspector Manohar Singh, was sitting, and he was addressing a very large crowd of the farmers. It seemed that a lot of farmers, probably around almost 100 farmers, had seemed to come, and there was some sort of a meeting happening between the inspector and the farmers, which was weird. We were sort of curious. Did something happen? Why are there so many farmers over there? And so, instead of going right towards the police station building, we decided to find out what exactly was happening. So, most of the farmers were sitting down, but a few were standing on the side, and we decided to stand with them and to listen what was being said. From the farmer side, someone was speaking, and we found out that the person speaking was an older gentleman who was the farmer leader. As we approached the crowd, Inspector Singh saw us coming towards them. Now, most of the policemen had become our good friends for the past couple of months. They enjoyed our company, they laughed when he came. We were kind of the harmless presence in the police station. There was only one man who disliked seeing us in the police station, and that was Inspector Manohar Singh. He had said so many times, "Vicky and Sunny, you waste the time of my police. Get out." He was always very irritated when he saw our faces. And as he saw us approach the crowd, his face started to blacken. He was probably already under some sort of stress or tension by talking to the farmers. And when he saw us approaching them, his face started to become really angry. But he couldn't say anything because he was talking to the farmer leader. But I could see in his eyes that he was saying his favorite dialogue, "Vicky and Sunny, get out." I said nothing. I just smiled at him and bowed. Well, Inspector Singh turned his eyes away from us and continued talking to the farmer leader. We strained our ears to really listen. What exactly was being said? There was some old issue about land acquisition and some compensation that had not yet been paid. We thought, well, that's not very interesting. I don't know if we can make a video about this. Plus, there's nothing to investigate over here. And we were about to turn away and go and meet Head Constable Shukla inside the police station, when suddenly one of the farmers sitting in the crowd turned to look at us and smiled. We recognized him. It was Hori. Now, let me tell you how we had met Hori and how he had come to be our friends. It was right in the Phulganj police station that we had met Hori. We were just, there was, I think around a month back, we were chatting with the Head Constable Shukla and some other constables when a farmer had come running inside the police station. He looked worried. It was Hori, and he said, "My cow has gone missing." Mr. Shukla turned to us and said, "Vicky, Sunny, would you like to solve this case?" I knew why he was saying that. He was not doing us any, he was not showing any charitable behavior on his part. It is just that there are a lot of lost cows and goats in the villages, and the police really does not want to solve such small cases. They would rather the farmers themselves find that stuff out. And so he decided that maybe it was something that could be forwarded and shifted to Vicky and Sunny. Well, as I say, something is better than nothing. We wanted a case, even if it was a case of a lost cow. And I said, "Sure, we'll help out. We'll find out." Hori looked grateful. And so we rode to his village, Hori sitting between us. Well, for the next 3 days, we really decided to work on the case. We investigated and investigated, and at the end of the 3 days, we actually managed to find the cow who seemed to have wandered off the path and ended up near the river. Now, Hori was pleased that we had found his cow, but he was way more pleased because during the course of the investigation, we had managed to make a lot of videos. A lot of videos. I think around 10, 12 videos where we were carrying out the investigation. And in a lot of those videos, we had featured Hori, interviewing him, Hori showing us around his fields, Hori showing us around the village. He was very pleased when he saw that he was part of those clips, those videos, which we had uploaded on YouTube. Hori felt that he had become a minor celebrity. He was very pleased with that. And whenever he met anyone, whether he met with his neighbor, or if he met with his relative or any stranger visiting the village, the first thing that Hori did was showed him the videos in which he had been featured. He was so proud that he managed to irritate everyone around him by showing them the videos. But anyways, he was very pleased, and that is how we came to be good friends with Hori. So when Hori saw us standing over there behind the crowd of the farmers, he smiled and then came towards us and asked us, "Hey, Vicky, Sunny, what are you two doing over here? Are you here on a case?" And I said, "What case? We don't have a case right now." So I asked him, "What exactly is happening over here?" And Hori said, "Oh, nothing, the old issue about the land that was acquired, and we had not gotten the full compensation, so we were just discussing that." And I said to Hori, "Oh, you know what? Maybe we can make a video on that. We can interview you and you tell us about the case." Hori said, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not very sure if I want to do that." He seemed reluctant, but I knew he was very pleased with the prospect of being featured in another video. And I said, "Oh, come on, Hori, let's make a video." And he said, "Oh, yes, of course, let's make a video." So 3 of us went to the other side of the police station compound, a little distance away from where the meeting was happening, and we started to make the video. Now, the way we made these videos was that Sunny was behind the camera, and the camera being the smartphone, because the cameras on the phones are quite good these days, and we didn't really want to carry our expensive cameras around. And I used to be in front of the camera with just a lapel mic like this one. And so we sort of positioned ourselves, made the frame. Sunny gave a go-ahead and said action, and I started to interview Hori, asking him about the issue. Now, the rest of the farmers that were sitting on the other side looked at us with a curiosity. What exactly was happening over here? They felt. This sort of a meeting between the farmers and the police, we later found out was kind of a monthly thing. Every month, the farmers used to come with the farmer leader and present their case to the police. And so everyone was kind of bored. They had heard all the arguments previously as well. But this shooting that was happening on the other side of the police station, that was something new, and so they were interested. And I believe that they recognized us as well, because Hori had managed to show all of those videos to all his friends and his neighbors. And so they probably recognized us, and then they decided, what? Hori is being featured again in another video? Why shouldn't a video be made about us? And so, in groups of 3 and 4, the farmers sitting in that meeting started to get up and started to walk towards us and made a crowd around us. And just in a few minutes, we had a huge crowd standing next to us. So I asked Hori, because I was busy in the interview, I asked Hori, "So, what are the plans of the farmers? How are you planning to take this issue forward?" And before Hori could answer, one of his friends sort of shoved Hori to one side and said, "Let me tell you what the plans are." And I said, "All right, tell me." He said, "You know what is the wealth of a farmer?" And I said, "No, I don't know. What is the wealth of a farmer?" And he said, "A farmer has no wealth." And I said, "Oh." He said, "There is only one thing that he has." I said, "Really?" And he said, "His land. We have got our land from our forefathers, and we will leave the land behind to our children." And I said, "True, very true. A land is the most important thing to a farmer," he said. And I said, yes, definitely. But he continued, when the country came, when the government came and said, we need this land to improve our country. We need this land to build the highway. Do you know what we said? And I said, no, what did you say? And I said, take this land. Take this land because while we love our land, we love our country even more. And I said, I know, that's great. But don't you think, Hori's friend said, don't you think that we should be adequately compensated for the land that we have given up? And I said, obviously, you should be compensated. Did you get the complete compensation? And he said, do you think if we had got the complete compensation that was due to us, we would be here? It has been 7 years since we have been asking for the compensation. And I said, oh my God, 7 years and still no compensation? And he said, well, some compensation, but not complete compensation. But let me tell you one more thing. And I said, what? And he said, we were promised 2 government jobs per family. And I said, so did you get 2 government jobs per family? And Hori's friend said, do you really think if we had gotten 2 government jobs per family, we would be here? And I said, oh my God, you have not got government jobs? And he said, no, we have not got government jobs. And all the farmers that were standing around us started to tut-tut in disapproval, like, oh my God. Now, while this interview was happening, it turns out that almost every farmer had come to stand near us. They all wanted to be in the shot. And suddenly, Inspector Singh and the farmer leader, the Sarpanch, suddenly found out that they had been left almost alone. And so Inspector Singh stopped the farmer leader and said, Sarpanch Sahab, we need to find out what's happening over there. Now, Inspector Singh knew that we were there conducting an interview because he had seen us going over there with Hori. And the last thing he wanted us to do was to rile the farmers up. Somehow he had managed to keep the tensions at bay, and the last thing he wanted was that we started to ask some really pointed questions and create some sort of a trouble with the farmers. And he thought that, no, I should stop this in the bud. And the same with the farmer leader as well. The Sarpanch was one of the most respected and an elder person. He was a very rich man. He didn't do any farming himself. He had lands and he had hired the laborers to do the farming. The only charm in the life of the farmer leader was to come every month with all the farmers and then really lay into the police, really excoriate the police. That was how he really got his kicks. And what was the point of sort of speaking his mind to the police if there was no one around him to listen to him speak? And so both the farmer leader and the inspector walked towards us to really find out what was happening. And while I was taking the interview of Hori's friend, I saw from the corner of my eye that Inspector Singh was coming towards us. And I knew nothing good was going to come of it. And so, as soon as Inspector Singh was near us, I took the mic and shoved it into his face. And I said, Inspector Saab, this farmer is telling me about his problem and that they have not been adequately compensated. Sir, what is the government doing? Inspector Singh was quiet for a moment. He looked at me and then he looked at Sunny and saw that we were making the video, and he knew very damn well that we were going to post that video on YouTube. And again, the last thing he wanted was to go viral on the internet on a farmer issue, no less. And so he said, you know what, the government is in a direct dialogue with the farmers, and we will make sure we reach some sort of a settlement. Don't worry about it. Now the farmer leader felt that he should be part of the interview as well. Everyone was getting interviewed. The only person he felt not getting interviewed was he. And he was the most important person there. And so I knew that what Inspector Singh was going to tell us to end that interview. But before he could say that, the farmer leader interjected. Inspector Singh, do you mind if I speak to these men? Inspector Singh did not want the farmer leader to speak to us, but what could he say? Could he say no to him? And so Inspector Singh said, sure, Sarpanch Sahab, please speak, but please keep it brief. We need to finish our conversation, And so, again, I respectfully put the mic in towards the farmer leader, and I asked him. And the farmer leader started. Well, I want to thank the media for covering this issue. And I was surprised. Oh, so suddenly we were media. And I looked at Sunny. I was like, bro, come on, we are media now. So the farmer leader carried on and he said, what is the wealth of a farmer? Nothing. He has no wealth. The only thing he has is his land. We have got it from our forefathers and we leave it to our children. Hori suddenly called from behind, Sarpanch Sahab, I have told all of this to the media. I've told all of this. The Sarpanch turned towards him and he said, what? Yes, Sarpanch Sahab, I told him that the farmer has no wealth, the only wealth he has is land. We have gotten it from our forefathers, we will leave it to our children. I've explained all of this issue about that we have not gotten compensation and no jobs. I've explained it. The farmer leader was suddenly angry. Why have you explained it? That's my line. And suddenly Hori's friend looked a little scared and he said, well, you say the same thing every month, so by this time, I sort of know all of this by heart. All of us do. The farmer started to snigger, but the farmer leader looked angry. Oh, so now you are the voice of the farmers, are you? Maybe I should resign from my job as Sarpanch. Make you the Sarpanch. Is that what you want? Inspector Singh decided that the situation was now getting out of hand. The last thing he wanted was the farmers to start fighting among themselves. And I was able to guess that this was what Inspector Singh was thinking. And so before he could say anything, I decided on my own to end the interview. And I turned towards the camera and I said, friends, you have listened from the farmers, you have listened from the government. And we hope that this issue gets resolved very, very quickly. Stay tuned in till the next video from Vicky and Sunny, Private Detectives. And the video was over. Inspector Singh took that opportunity to take the farmers away back, and all of them went and they started their meeting. Sunny smiled at me and said, well, it was a good thing you ended the interview when you did, because I was looking at Inspector Singh and he looked ready to bash us and throw us out. And I said, oh, don't worry. To create content, we sometimes have to take the risks. You just focus on the video and post it. Let's see how many views it gets. And then we decided that at least we had achieved one thing. We had managed to make one video that day. And so then we decided, let's go and meet Head Constable Shukla to see if he had some sort of a case for us to find. And a strange thing happened. As you will find out in the next video, that this was when we actually would see the first glimpse of the men who brought the whole city to a standstill. We will have no idea, at this point we had no idea that those two men were going to really be able to create so much havoc. But the day was just starting. The adventure was just starting. And while we thought that we had achieved a lot, But that was nothing, because we were completely unprepared for what was going to happen next. I will tell you the rest of the story in the next video. So again, as Vicky would say, stay tuned in.